go ahead and okay. I'm just gonna pull up my.
Cool.
Give me 1 second.
Cool. Let's go. I'll do my intro. What's up, Coaching Collective? Welcome to Coaching Collective number 18, I think 17 or 18. Today we have a special guest, Mr. Jason Theobald. He is going to be going over very in-depth on gut health and a GI map so that you guys can kind of see what to look for and how to do that if you ever want to go that in depth with your clients. Jason kind of pioneers the industry when it comes to, he's pretty much leading the industry when it comes to gut health and hormonal health. Definitely excited for you guys to learn from him. So Jay, take the microphone, brother.
All right, let's do this. Okay, so my main goal tonight is, digestion is very diverse, right? I mean, there's so many issues could be going on. So what I tried to do with this presentation and what I'm teaching you tonight is basically pick out the things that you're going to see most in coaching. These are the things that I see the most over and over at my team and in my clients. So then I'm going to give you some application. How do we apply these things? So that you can do that with the tools I give you. And then at the end, because we touch on the GI map when we talk about SIBO, I thought I would walk you through what a GI map looks like and how you interpret it and go from there. So that would help you. And then after that, we can open it up to a few questions. So without further ado, I just go into, this is a brief overview of the digestive system, if you will. And it starts in the mouth. And so, I know that sounds really simple, but talk to your clients who are just getting like general bloat. How are they chewing their food enough? You should chew each bite about 22 times. It seems like overkill, but that's how you really help the stomach do its job. So, I have 30 chews per bite, somewhere around there. Then you've got the esophagus, and that's the pipe that leads to your stomach. And then food moves through this, and it's called peristalsis, which is pretty interesting. You could stand on your head and swallow, and peristalsis will still get the food to your stomach. Might take a little longer, but anyways, there's contractions and tightening, and it happens, and that's how we work the food down. And gets into the stomach, and your stomach is obviously where it's stored, but further broken down by acids. And you'll have pancreatin acids, pancreatin enzymes as well. So your stomach starts to do some of the bulk of the digestion. And then you've got your small intestine. And that's where most of the nutrients are absorbed. So when you have problems with small intestinal bacteria, overgrowth, things of that nature, you have a lot of malabsorption, and they're not getting the calories or micronutrients that you think they are. So that small intestine problems are very important because that's where a lot of the absorption is going on. More pancreatin enzymes are released, more bile from the liver getting added here. And so if you've got a problem there, which we see a lot, you're going to have issues. And then the colon and large intestine and anus are all together. It's about 5 to 7 foot long muscular tube that connects the intestines to the rectum, basically. So that's just a very general overview of kind of, the stomach and digestive parts. I really want to get into what we're going to see and things of that nature. And that's where we're going to focus a lot. So what causes a lot of the digestive problems in athletes? Because most of us work with athletes, even if they're a general nutrition client. I mean, I always try to still treat them like an athlete, like they're training 4 or 5 times a week, like they're doing cardio. That's an athletic endeavor. And so I call the people that we handle athletes. And so, stress is really a big component when you see a lot of digestive issues in our clientele. And you can have that from a lot of different things, right? Stress is just a big, wide bucket. Then you can start breaking it down to what issues could be. So it could be training, but it could be something like estrogen dominance. That's going to be a stress to the body. Dieting too much cardio, too much lifting. And then you add in the life stresses and, kids, mortgages, all these different things, taxes. And so, that starts to add up. And so what happens is a lot of times when stress is high, many of us produce less hydrochloric, so less acid. Okay. And what that's going to do is cause the food to sit longer and then possibly ferment. And that's when you'll start seeing more gas. You'll start potentially seeing SIBO if it goes on too long and untreated. So, that's kind of where a lot of things kind of get started with a lot of these things. Now, the reason I share that is because how are we going to fix them? I use something called RF3. You're going to write that down, and you're going to want to use this when you have issues with clients that have anything to do with gut, have anything to do with hormones, really from Hashis to PCOS. I use this system, and it's really important that you have a system to attack these cases. So you got a bad digestion case, I'm going to rest them, and we're going to talk about that right here. I'm going to flush them. We're going to talk about that next slide. And then we're going to talk about the feed, which is the next F, and then function. So it's rest, flush, feed, function. And you want to keep thinking through your cases that way. So we're on the rest portion right now. Okay. So what does that mean? If someone's training 6 days a week, it might be okay to drop them to 4. If someone's training 4, you might have to drop them to 2, because whatever they're doing is causing too much stress. And so you've got to get it down. I like to then say that they can only train an RPE of 7. That's your rate of perceived exertion. It's a self-governor. Like, is it going to be an exact science? Of course not. Another way of saying it is 3 reps shy of failure on everything. There will be no drop sets. There will be no intensity techniques. It's going to feel like a lot of times my clients say they're going through the motions. But why are we doing this? You can't be training to build muscle and constantly hitting the mTOR pathways and all that and think you're going to fix digestion issues. It's just not going to happen. So we've got to pull that back some, and it's only temporary, but we got to pull it back to get a handle on everything. You are what you digest, not just what you eat. And that's really important to remember as you're coaching people. And so another thing that these people might be doing is too much cardio. Maybe they do a lot of HIIT. I see a lot of spin. A lot of women who are really into spin, I end up with them, and they almost always have gut issues. So we got to pull this cardio way back, and we want to get more into a parasympathetic type cardio. And for me, I love a fasted walk at maybe 100 beats per minute, 30 minutes, 4 to 5 times a week. If they can do 7 because they love it, do 7. I walk every morning about an hour. But if they won't, and 4 or 5, if you can get that out of them, great. But lots of walking, low intensity, 100 beats per minute, no HIIT cardio, no missed cardio. Address their sleep here too. If they have sleep issues, obviously we need to rest better. So, I have to go through, like, what do they do at night? If you see on your intake forms that they aren't sleeping well, you might need to figure out what their sleep routine is. Oh, they don't have one. Okay, well, let's help them establish one. Or, they're on the computer till they go to bed. Well, that's blue light. They probably are sensitive. That can cause dopamine rises in some people. I don't really think I'm one. I do really well with the TV, and then I ass out on the couch and go straight to bed. But some people are really jazzed up by screens. So talking through that with them, we've got to remember we're getting rest here. Rest. That's the first R. That's the R we're on. Digestion is parasympathetic. That means it's not sympathetic. And sympathetic is flight or fight, right? And so what these people have done with themselves is they've got themselves stuck more in flight or fight than they get parasympathetic rest. So their body is not, it gets wired, but it's not calming back down. And so it's staying constantly in flight or fight. And so that is not parasympathetic. Parasympathetic is known as rest and digest. So of course, when we're trying to fix digestion, we want more parasympathetic. Therefore, we can't be training to failure, and we can't be doing HIIT cardio. We need a lot of lifts, a lot of walking. Yoga. I put yoga in my people's plans. You can get on YouTube and search 30-minute restorative yoga. There's a great little video that's put out, and they can do it at their home. But it's all deep breathing, and that's what these people need, because whenever you exhale slowly, you kick in more parasympathetic. That's a good little hack to know. So what I do with people, I'm like, all right, go get a bath. Tell your kids, your husband, they can't talk to you. Put on some good music, and I want 4 seconds in and 4 seconds out breathing. And that'll bring you into a more parasympathetic state. So that's an easy way to do it. So, over time, the stress is what's causing a lot of this for the people that we see. So I like to at least start there, and I like to just get more rest into the program while we're fixing what we're fixing. Okay. So let's see here. There was supposed to be a slide. Did I miss it? Okay. So my flush slide is not on here, and I apologize for that. I had computer problems this morning. I ended up getting into my Mac by finding things on my drive, but there was a flush thing here, a flush slide. So what I'm going to do?
Yeah, you can just talk through it.
No, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and type through it as I do, and so everyone can at least see what I'm doing. So we got a flush phase, and this is right after you kind of think through rest, but you're presenting all this to your people, right? Like it's all going to be presented, but this is my second step, and flush phase is what I think you guys should do. It's usually 14 days. Okay. You're going to have some diet restrictions. We're going to pull gluten. We're going to pull alcohol and dairy. Okay. We're going to get rid of those. And if they have SIBO, we might go low FODMAP. Otherwise, we will do Mediterranean. Okay. And we have no artificial sweeteners except stevia or monk. Okay. So that is going to help lower inflammation. And that's what we're trying to do here. I want 1 gallon of water at least, and that's pure water.
Would you do more water is more beneficial? Or no?
I do. I think anything up to 2 gallons would be amazing. Anything over that, you're going to probably dilute electrolytes and feel some.
So if athlete pending, you would push to 2 gallons if they could.
Yeah, if they can handle it. Yeah, but I want 1 gallon bare minimum, and it's got to be pure water. I don't want Mio in it and all this other shit in it because we don't want the artificial sweeteners. We are going to cut out caffeine. A lot of them are going to be relying on that. We got to get that out. So caffeine is dropped. Okay. Then we need to run some sort of product to increase basically detoxification, phase 1 and phase 2 that happens in the liver. And the reason is because that's where toxins leave the body. That's where estrogen leaves the body. So if you end up with a SIBO case, you're going to want this cranking. So as there's die off, it gets the toxins out of the body better, and you'll be able to prevent some of those die off symptoms. But our Metapure is a good product for that. It's a protein powder, pea or rice based, but it's got a slew of ingredients to help phase 1 and phase 2. I mean, it's got curcumin, it's got quercetin. It's just loaded, chock full of everything you need, all the vitamins and minerals to really crank on that. So Metapure, 2 scoops. Now, there are competitors to us. Metagenics has a great one called Clear Change, but it's about $30 or $40 more. Those are the only 2 that I really know of on the market. I'm sure there are other types of products, but I use our Metapure. And then I add our OptiPure. That's going to again help with liver detoxification, and it's a great way to really, really get these systems upcharged. And that's what we want here. We want that to be cranking. So I add
throwing that in when people's digestion's off.
I do all this when digestion is off. Now, if it's just simple constipation, which we're going to go over, or simple bloat, you could skip this step. And we'll go over that. But think about it. Sometimes it's just as simple as chewing your food better and avoiding things that set you off, right? So we'll go over that. And so if that's the case, we don't have to flush and do all that. But all these other things that we're talking about tonight, I would flush. And I think it's one of those things where if people follow through the RF3, they're always going to get a good outcome. I know my business partner, he's got a ton of data at Nutrition Dynamic that they capture. And he said that they saw an 88% improvement in all ailments from people who were just rested more, flushed, and put on a Mediterranean style eating. So that's a pretty big number. So I'm pretty sold on getting a flush in for just about everybody. So that's how you run that. So I'm sorry that slide wasn't there, but hopefully you got your notes down because I typed it out as well. So let's talk about acid reflux and then the functional pieces to that. So the functional pieces to me mean like what tools, what supplements will I use? So when we are at rest, then we did the flush, and then the feed is part of where we talked about the diet. It'd be low FODMAP or Mediterranean. Now we're talking about functional pieces and what functional issues are going on wrong. And so these are the tools of the trade, the little bit of like supplementation that you can do. So we got an acid reflux case. Yep, I'm going to flush them. I'm going to rest them more. I'm going to put them on a low FODMAP diet because I want to get inflammation down as much as I can. So that's where the feed part of this is going to be a low FODMAP. Okay. What's going on with acid reflux? The lower esophageal sphincter it works very interesting. What happens is when you eat, a certain amount of acid rises. Okay. The food comes in and that makes the acid rise. Now, if you've got enough acid, the body senses this rising and it seals the sphincter. But if you don't have enough acid from being stressed or, other situations in your life, that's not rising and that's not sealing off the sphincter. And so then what happens is as the digestion's going on, you get reflux of the acid up the pipe because the les is not being sealed off. So that's kind of why we don't want to use PPIs. We don't want to make that acid less, but that's what ends up happening, right? Like you get acid reflux, the doctor puts you on a PPI. It's a proton pump inhibitor, and it actually dries up acid more. So in the short term, you feel better, but in the long run, it always comes back, and they end up with SIBO because now they've removed the stomach acid so much that food sits. And a lot of these people have malabsorption issues, et cetera, et cetera. I can't tell you how many bodybuilders who work with other coaches will hit me up to help them fix their acid reflux. It's probably been 15 because their coach just tells them, you got to eat 10 ounces of meat cooked five times a day. And I can't change that and blah, 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 blah. And they're just like, I'm like, yeah, I mean, you're not processing it. So acid reflux is pretty big that I've seen. So what we want to do is kind of take a different approach. Okay. We don't want to use a PPI. We want to restore stomach acid. We want to fix the gut lining because of the pain that they have. So as I said, the feed part of this, it's a low FODMAP diet. And I kind of already told you how all that went. We go no artificial sweeteners, no alcohol, no gluten, no dairy. And this helps get inflammation down right away. Okay. Once they're healed, you can certainly put FODMAPs back into their plan. And in fact, you want to, because that helps feed the good bacteria. The few products that we use here, I use Medigest by Metagenics. All it is betaine hydrochloric. It just seems to be very potent and works really well. So I've stuck by them, but there are other brands. I think Now Food sells one that's a good bit cheaper. And we're talking 2 to 3 caps of 850 milligrams per meal. And what that's doing, it's putting acid back in. Now they're going to start digesting better. That flap is going to start sealing off because as the acid rises, we've got enough now. So we're giving that person who's short of acid back acid. And then another one is zinc carnosine. What that does is it rebuilds the gut lining. So 75 milligrams twice a day. I use Zenlori by Metagenics. There are other brands as well, but it'll only be 2 caps a day, 75 milligrams. And that's going to help rebuild the lining that will definitely have deteriorated from the acid reflux and all the inflammation. So does someone with this have to stay on these forever? No. Once you get this fixed, I always bring out the Zenlori. And then I try to pull back on the Metagest. So let's say they're on 3, we drop it to 2. Are you doing okay? Okay, let's drop it to 1. Okay, let's pull it. I'm starting to feel a little bogged down again. All right, maybe you need 1. So there are people who need that support. Okay, but the Zenlori is just to get the inflammation, the gut lining repaired so that can come out. And once everything's fixed, you shouldn't have more gut lining issues. So they don't need it. So just see how the Metagest flows with them. And so now you're probably thinking, what if they're already on a PPI? Because that's going to happen a lot. They're going to come to you and they're already been put on this by their doctor. So remember what that's doing. It's drying up acid even more. Okay. So that's going to make food sit even longer, not process, not break down as well. So what I want to do here when they're already on the PPI, we're going to do the same things, get them on the low FODMAP, the restrictions of the diet. I cut the PPI in half week 1, and I go ahead and start them on the Zenlori and the Metagest at the doses we talked about. So if they're taking 2 of their PPIs, do 1. If they're taking 1, then take it every other day. Just whatever it is, get it in half. Okay. Week 2, cut that amount in half again. You stay on Zenlori and Metagest. So, you might only be taking it 2 times a day or 2 times a week or 3 times a week, something like that. Week 3, I just pull the PPI. They stay on Metagest and Zenlori. And then I go ahead and just run the program for about 8 weeks, keeping them on the supplements, keeping the diet in check, get everything sewed up and neatly, and then they're usually good to go. So, PPI doesn't mean that you can't fix it. You just have to kind of reverse it out a little slowly. And that's how you want to do that. And if you have clients right now on PPIs, I'm telling you, you do not want them on them long term. My dad's friend just died of stomach cancer, and he's been on PPIs for about 40 years. It's a shame that the medical community doesn't talk more about, a natural way of healing this, and they go about it with the PPIs. So I wouldn't have any of my clients stay on them. I wouldn't have any of my loved ones stay on them. There's a better way, and you can heal it and get moving on. So this is one of those things too. If you heal with your client, like, they'll love you. Like, it's super annoying. Like, if everyone's had it, like I've had it occasionally, it's super annoying and can be pretty painful. So general bloating, gas, and constipation. This is where, if you find that it's just general and you can get it to go away with other means, you don't have to go through the flush and all that. Is it going to hurt them to flush? It is not. It's never going to hurt someone to flush. So, that's why it's just part of my protocols when people are having issues, but you technically wouldn't have to for general run of the mill. So then you're probably thinking, well, how do I know it's general run of the mill? Well, let's try to sort through that the best we can. So a lot of times, if they're bloating like an hour after they eat, that's not a SIBO issue or a dysbiosis. That's more of a pancreatin enzyme issue. So it takes about an hour for the chyme, the juices, the food, the nutrients to get to the duodenum. And that is where the pancreatin enzymes are secreted. And so if you're about an hour in and that's when they're bloating, this is a pancreatin enzyme issue. It's not, SIBO. It's not something bigger than it is. And so we can add pancreatin enzymes to them. Now, there are some other things, though, that we need to troubleshoot inside of general bloating and gas. Remember, food chewing. People eat really fast. I'm guilty of it too. People need to slow down and eat. So remind them they need to be drinking a gallon of water a day. They need to not be doing something stressful when they eat. People will do that too. They don't even stop to smell their food. Like smelling your food is really part of the process, that's starting to salivate and really take note of what you're doing. So they really just need to be more mindful and slow down a lot of times. And then fiber, right? Like women need 25 grams at least, men need 35 usually at least. So is that being met? That could be causing bloating because maybe they're not going to the bathroom, or that could be the issue of the constipation. So check fiber, and then keep a food journal with them. If it's only happening a couple times a day, we need to pinpoint it, right? And they could just have a sensitivity from overuse of a food. It happens all the time with people, right? Like we all generally have probably 10 foods that maybe I'm wrong, but a lot of people have, I might have a rotation of 8, and then I finally get sick of it.
This last week with them.
What's that?
I said I just had a call with this last week on here saying the exact same thing.
Yeah. So it's easy. It keeps your shopping quicker. It keeps your food prep easier, but you might develop sensitivity. So that could be from a food sensitivity if it's happening, certain times of the day. So those are all keys where I'm like, okay, I don't know that there's something deeper going on. It might just be your general bloating and gas. And so once you've taken care of those lifestyle determinations, then you can go ahead and be like, all right, well, maybe we go ahead and add you a pancreatin enzyme. That's going to help the food process better. You can also add the betaine hydrochloric that we talked about. Again, that's going to help food process better. It helps a lot with meat. If you're, someone that eats a lot of meat, or your client's eating a lot of meat, like a lot of our clients do, that hydrochloric really helps. Another thing that helps is restoring good bacteria. So you can use a good probiotic that you trust. New Ethics has one. Obviously, that's the one I use. There's plenty on the market. There are good and bad. Just make sure you trust your brand and who's making it. You can give someone SIBO with really shitty, spoiled probiotics. And then, you want to just feed the good bacteria. So if you're going to go ahead and add that, so we've got pancreatin enzyme in, we've got a probiotic now in, you want to at least feed it. And so we want prebiotics. So, that comes from, more fermented type foods, things of that nature. I don't like many of them. I do like FODMAP, so I get fruit in. That will help feed them. Blackberries are a FODMAP. I believe bananas are, but it's like if they're ripe, they are, and if they're green or they're not, it's one of the two. But get you fruit will help. But I also use my gourmet greens with New Ethics. That's got prebiotics in it, so I'll use that sometimes with my clients if I know they're not doing their part to get some of these in to feed the bacteria I'm adding. So, when we get to SIBO, you're going to see that's bloat like nonstop. And that's how you got something more serious going on than just, kind of your general bloat, gas, and constipation. Now, there are some other honorable mentions of tools, after you've dealt with lifestyle stuff. Ginger root is amazing for gas. Just to get them some relief at first. Ginger root works amazing. Now Foods has one. You can take a couple caps with meals, and it really works. It really works. So, that's some other things that you can add, but really dig into to what's going on in the lifestyle side of things as well. Okay. Poor fat digestion. I see this too. And aside from bloating and discomfort, you'll know someone has poor fat digestion if they get their stools float, or they get acne on their arms or the back of their head. That a lot of times is poor fat digestion. And the main culprit of this is low bile production from the gallbladder. Okay. So to boost this, assuming they have a gallbladder, you can use a product for Metagym. It's called Lipogen. It's an amazing product, and it will help increased bile production, and it makes it less sludgy too. So if someone has like issues with obstructive issues with the gallbladder, which usually leads to them being removed, that's because they're usually their bile's too sludgy, and lipogen can help there. And so that's one way. Now, if someone doesn't have a gallbladder, that means they still are piss poor at digesting fat. And they really should have been told by the doctor to get on some ox bile for the rest of their lives. But a lot of times that is not communicated. And I see a lot of SIBO with people who don't have gallbladders because their digestion just isn't, up to snuff. And so food sits over years and now they've got a shitstorm in their stomach. So if you have someone who says no gallbladder, get them on ox bile and take it every meal. Just follow the label. I think it's usually like 1 or 2 caps. I don't have a brand specific. I honestly just get on Amazon usually and Google ox bile. I wish I had something to pass to you, but I don't. But no gallbladder, you got to get it in, or else you're going to be dealing with poor fat digestion and just poor digestion in general. Gallstones, I've had them come across 3 times in 15 years. So you're probably not going to get many, but again, gallstones are an obstructive issue with the gallbladder, and it's from the sludgy bile. And so phosphatidylcholine, I believe that's right. I got to move this up. Yep, phosphatidylcholine, 100 mgs 3 times per day. It's a cheaper route than going with the lipogen, and that will basically make the bile less sludgy. And so it'll release better and it'll help prevent them from continually to get gallstones, which are extremely painful. A lot of people think they're dying. I mean, sounds like it's pretty bad. So that is poor digestion of fats and what you do for it to help it with our functional tools of the trade. Gut dysbiosis and SIBO. I see a lot of this. Now, it might be because I've talked about it a shit ton. And so people just come seek me out, but I see it a ton. So what is it? It's small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. And it obviously affects the small intestine. And what did we talk about? The small intestine is majorly important at doing food absorption. And so if you've got this going on in the small intestine, you are malabsorbed, you are not going to grow muscle, you never should be cutting. The body needs to be focused on getting rid of that infestation. Okay. So what can cause that? Low stomach acid. We've talked about that. And what can cause that? Stress, overtraining, life. Too much reliance on antibiotics in their past. You'll see that a lot. When an antibiotic is taken, it's kind of almost like a bomb in the stomach. You really don't know what you're going to get. Some people are more prone. I've been off and on antibiotics over 2021. Didn't really have too much digestion issues from it. But then I have other clients who take it and they're bloated right away and they're just a mess. And so, genetics play a role on everything we take and everything we do, right? So, some people will get on them and never have an issue, and other people use them and now they've got SIBO issues. Stress, poor diet that's high in sugars and sweets, that's just going to feed the bugs. And a lot of times the opportunistic bacteria, the ones that move a little quicker and they're opportunistic for that reason, they'll get higher in number due to that type of diet. And disordered eating, or even eating disorders where you're, restricting for 24 hours and then there's a binge, and now it's like, oh, the critters are like, oh, we're getting fed, and then it's starvation at time. And so all that can cause issues. So if you have people with eating disorders in the history and they're, hitting you up and they've got gut issues, if they're bloating nonstop, it's good possibility they have like some SIBO and need to take care of it. Poor functional digestive enzymes, which that could just be genetic. But that can cause it because, again, you're just not moving your food through well. Use of acid blockers over time, even constipation that's left unchecked can cause it, and then lowered immunity for whatever reason. And lowered immunity we can test that on the GI map. So if someone has that, we can boost the immunity with a few tools. So testing for it. I like to test, but the GI map is 500, $600. And this see, I fixed all these. So this says, you know what, on the one you guys got, do you guys have yours open? You might've got something happened when I went to send these. I'm really sorry about that. I changed all this stuff.
I can check my email, Jay.
Yeah, of course my computer wouldn't let me in this morning. And I think I pulled the wrong one from the cloud. I mean, it's all still there. It's just, this meant to say,
I can share. You want to do the GI map or the guide?
No, see where it says Genova stool test here. It's supposed to say GI map.
Gotcha.
That's what I screwed up. And I changed that, but when I went and saved everything, I did it yesterday and updated everything, and then I couldn't get in this morning.
Okay.
So I pulled it off my cloud and thought it was the same one. Apparently it wasn't. So that's my fault. So Genova stool is really good, but the GI map is $100 cheaper. So I would use GI map instead. And there is a test where you can get the GI map at nutritiondynamic.com. Nutritiondynamic.com, and lab testing on the left side of the site. And when you go there, there'll be a ton of lab tests, and they've got a GI map, and you can use Mentor Lab, and that'll get you, I think, 10 or 15% off. So the least will drop it, I think, from 462 to maybe around 400. But my point is, it gets expensive. So they're paying your fees, supplements, all the things add up. And so if they don't want to,
there goes stress up with it, huh?
Right. And so, sometimes they might not want to run it. So my thing to you is, will running a SIBO protocol, if they don't have it, hurt the client? The answer is no, it won't. And honestly, if they have gut issues, even if it's not SIBO, it usually takes it away. So I have no problem running one. If they don't want to test, but they've got bloat nonstop, they bloat from drinking water, I'm going to go ahead and run SIBO. But most practitioners will say test, don't guess. And so I've moved away from the Genova because it's $100 more. And I've went towards the GI map, which is what I'm going to train you in tonight. Symptoms, a lot of times with SIBO, you're going to have recurrent diarrhea or constipation, or both. They can wax and wane. So that's always usually going to be there. You're going to have bloating, gas, abdominal pain, cramps, nausea. They usually have a poor appetite. So a lot of people come to you eating very low calorie. Food cravings, skin rashes, even UTIs when we have candidas and yeasts. Okay. And here's, again, I'm going to repeat this. Many with SIBO will bloat from just drinking water. And so that's always one of my questions. If I'm suspecting they have it, I'm like, you know what? Are you bloating after every meal? Yep. And does it stay almost all day? Yeah. I feel pregnant. Do you bloat even if you get up in the morning and drink water? Sometimes they know, sometimes they have to test it. And usually they get back to me and say, yep, I started to bloat from that. So that's a good surefire way that you're dealing with some dysbiosis and overgrowth. So how do we do it? Again, it's the RF3 system. We're going to rest. We can't be fighting an infection, training to failure. We're going to do a lot of cardio that's parasympathetic. We're going to flush. We're going to get the detox pathways opened up because we're going to be given killers here. And the killers are going to be taking care of the bad bugs, right? But there's die-off, and we want that liver to be processing toxins really well, okay? You'll get less die-off symptoms, and die-off symptoms are like headache, nausea, and we can limit that in our clients. So the feed is what we come to next after the flush, right? And so we got to think through that. So I like low FODMAP here. Some people still do the Mediterranean, but I find that I got to switch in and out foods because sometimes things will light them up. I'd rather I get into that low FODMAP, ibsdiets.org. That's ibsdiets.org. And there's a cool little at the top, it'll say FODMAPs. And God, it's a huge list of low FODMAPs. Like it's, sometimes people think, oh my gosh, I got to eat like this. It's going to be it's really not. Like there's plenty of good food. So I get on that and I formulate their diet. I don't let a client be a macro client with SIBO. I control the diet. I've tried it and it just doesn't work as well because they just simply can't help themselves. Or they won't read the damn list, like it's right there, but they won't read it. So personally, that's how I do it. I've let some of my more advanced clients do it and literally they don't get healed. They're still got symptoms after 8 to 10 weeks. So I'm building the diet. So for now on, I just build diets. That's what I recommend when you're dealing with it, but it's your call. But again, we're going to have some restrictions here to the FODMAP, low FODMAP. No artificial sweeteners, no dairy, no gluten, because those are included in the FODMAPs and low FODMAPs. And we're going to only use monk fruit and stevia to sweet things. Again, no alcohol. Alcohol is terrible when you're battling SIBO. Okay. Alcohol will feed those bad bugs in an instant. And it also is terrible for the gut lining. So, if someone's going to embark on a SIBO protocol, we can't be having, their bachelorette party or their bachelor party, coming up. Like a lot of times I'll just wait because you can make things a lot worse if you got the killers in there and you go ahead and have a binge fest of alcohol. So we use the diet for 10 weeks. Usually at the end of 10 weeks, they're feeling better. But if they're not, we'll stay on the diet and we'll rotate killers in more and more. And next slide, I'll show you what the actual functional part of this is, i.e. the supplements that we use. And then after 10 weeks, if they are feeling better, always remember this, you got to put your FODMAPs back. I think we touched on that earlier, but you got to put your FODMAPs back. So I usually start with 1. I'll put in blackberries. And then I might do asparagus the next week. And then after that, I kind of just ask them, like, what else do you want to add? And I do 1 at a time. And you only really need 4 or 5 in maybe daily. You don't have to be every, obviously, food. We just got to get some in to basically feed the good bacteria that we've put back in. So we re-inoculated. And so we need to get those back in. Just don't stay on a low FODMAP indefinitely. Just, but if you got to go longer on the protocol, go longer. I have it set up for 10 weeks, but I've had to go longer before. So the first 8 weeks, we're going to have Gut Defender. That's ours from New Ethics, and it's a great product. We're going to do 2 caps at meals 1, 2, 4, and 5. Are there anything specific about those meals? Nope. I'm just spreading them out, but just some sort of system for them to follow, basically. And this has killers in it. And so the killers we've chosen go across the board. And what I mean by that is when we get into the GI map, you're going to see that there are certain killers that kill bacteria, kill yeast, and also kill H. pylori. Okay. And so I like to pick those. And so Gut Defender has that. I beef this part up many times. This is a general protocol if someone doesn't give you a GI map. Okay. Once you see a GI map, you can beef this up some, and we'll read the GI map and I'll show you what I mean. But like berberine is actually a killer and it kills all 3. Oil of oregano is a killer and it kills all 3. So many times, even if I don't know what I'm dealing with, I rotate those in with the Gut Defender. And you're probably wondering, how does that rotation work? I might do the first 4 weeks of berberine at 500 milligrams with the Gut Defender. The second 4 weeks, I'll pull the berberine and put the oil of oregano in. It's just 2 drops every other meal. And I'll do that for 4 weeks while the Gut Defender stays for all 8. So you're just rotating killers through. And I like those too, because they go across the board and kill all those things. So, you can get really specific, or you can do it in a broad way like that when you don't really know what you're fighting, but you're getting enough killers in to kill all 3 of the main problems. Digestion, we want to support it. When you have SIBO issues, your bile is going to usually be low. So I like this Beta Plus. It's always worked really well for myself and clients running this. It really helps get bile flowing. And so I like that 2 caps 3 times daily. Just with any meals, you can say 1, 3, and 5 if you want. And then I do put in a probiotic. I use Restore Flora that you see there without an E if it's diarrhea. And then constipation, I use Microbiomes Labs HU58. So it just depends on what you're dealing with in terms of which you pick. The Restore Flora has some Saccharomyces boulardii in it, which is really good for diarrhea. So those are their probiotics. You got to pick based on symptoms. If they have constipation and occasionally they have diarrhea, I would use the Microbiome Labs HU58. We're going to use a biofilm remover, and you might not know what biofilms are. I didn't really know until I took some courses on SIBO protocols, but basically any bacteria, this is the way they survive. And so even a cut in your arm, they're going to form biofilm. So it isn't specific to stomachs. That's what when I first learned about it, I thought it was like the way they do it in the stomach. No, biofilms are formed by bacteria, any cut, any area. And so what happens is they form a colony and there's this ooze around it. And the ooze is protective. And antibiotics can't get through it usually, and nor can our antimicrobials. So if you take just the gut defender and rotate in the berberine oil of oregano, you're going to have about a 50-50 chance of being successful. The more biofilms they have, the worse it's going to be. And as soon as you kill the ones floating around, there's going to be more to come. And so we need that biofilm remover. We built one at New Ethics called Biofilm Resolve. Works very well. You can see how I do the dosing right there. It ramps up and then ramps down. So I'm not going to repeat all that, but it's written right out there for you to do it. Okay. So that's going to be the first 8 weeks. So let's recap what's happened. We rested them. We flushed them. We set up the proper diet, low FODMAP with the restrictions. And now the functional piece to this is what we're going over right now. So all this would have been laid out for them by you. And that's why I like that moniker, RF3. Okay, so these just have some of the things that you can get it. They're links. I tried to hide those using the link thing, but it never would give me a place to click. So I didn't know if it was going to work or not. So I just copy and pasted them. Okay, so what happens after 8 to 10 weeks? The maintenance phase is what happens. Okay, so we talked about this, but I'm going to tell you again because it's really important. You put the FODMAPs back one at a time. So when does that start? Is it just because it's 8 weeks, or is it because they're asymptomatic? It's asymptomatic. So, if you've gone 8 weeks, and I've done SIBO protocols where they don't start feeling even slightly better till the 6th week. Well, I know I can't stop at 8. And so I've got one girl, we literally did 16 weeks and she's just now saying she's asymptomatic. And so sometimes they go longer. That, their immunity might not be good. Maybe it's just a really bad case. So it's not the 8 weeks that triggers it. It's no symptoms. But generally speaking, most people are going to feel better after 8 to 10 weeks. We got to get the FODMAPs back because we are now we are re-inoculating with good probiotics. I use our Flora Protect. And so we got to feed that. So those are now what infiltrate. And so basically I will add back the FODMAPs one at a time, like we've talked about. And I get the Flora Protect in, one in the morning with meal 1 and one at meal 5. I also add a digestive enzyme. Why do I do this? Because I want to keep food flowing through there perfectly well, very well oiled machine. So I add an enzyme. I use our Utilize, but you can use any pancreatin enzyme you want. If you want to put actually some extra hydrochloric, nothing wrong with that either, especially if they had H. pylori. It'll help keep it at bay. Gourmet greens, again, it's got prebiotics in it. There are other ways you can get that from, from the FODMAPs, from even inulin. It's in some of the stevia sweeteners is a good one. So there's other ways. You don't have to use our gourmet greens. I do it with my people, but you definitely want to get the good probiotic in, and you definitely want to get an enzyme in. And then, get the FODMAPs back in, and they need to stay on a good, clean diet. And we need to maintain new lifestyle habits now with less stress and all those things, or they could end right back up in the same situation. Notes on fixing SIBO. Sometimes it gets worse before better. Sometimes there are headaches involved, cramping. Maybe they go from constipation to diarrhea. They might go from diarrhea to constipation. I have one of those right now. And she's like, well, this is better. I'd rather them be pebbles than water, but it's still not right. And I'm like, I know we're not there yet, but so it moves. It's wise to tell the clients this ahead of time, because if you don't, they're going to be emailing you on a Tuesday night and wondering why they feel even worse and what are you doing to them. So if you tell them ahead of time, then they know that that's a possibility, and that eases their mind. I've seen yeasts move on me, nasty stuff. So they either become UTIs or thrush in the mouth. Thrush is like a white coating on your tongue and like everywhere, and it's pretty thick and nasty. So to get rid of the thrush in the mouth, I'll use a product called Dental Sidon, and I have it listed there for you. And you'll brush 3 times daily with that. If they get a UTI, I'd use just GSE Pro by Tonic C. And I gave you a link. But with shipping being really slow these days, UTIs really aren't something to mess with. But the problem is, to get rid of them with the medical community, use antibiotics. So if you have someone who's in a SIBO protocol, and now you're going to have to use an antibiotic to get rid of a UTI, I prefer to go to the GSE Pro too, and go that route. But hold on one second. This is my son, and if I don't take it, he won't go to bed for his mom. Hold on one second. Hey, buddy. Hey, I'm actually giving a presentation right now, but I wanted to at least say hi and let you know that I got your call. Okay. But I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow. I'll get you at 2 p.m. Okay. Okay. Good night. Bye. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
Okay. So sometimes it gets worse and sometimes it moves. And that GSE Pro, as I was saying, I like because it's not dropping a bomb in the stomach that we're trying to fix. I get, but my point is too, UTIs are dangerous, right? They can get into the kidneys. So it's one of those things like, what do we do? Do we get the antibiotic real quick? Can we get on the GSE Pro really fast? If we go that route, 2 caps 4 times per day, to really knock that out. And it works pretty well. And then you don't have to set off that bomb, that antibiotic in the stomach. IBS. I'll be honest with you. I think most of it, if not all of it, is SIBO and SIBO type problems. The medical community just wants to give you Linzess and send you on your way. They'll say it's characterized by 3 or 4 runny stools per day. But SIBO comes with the same things. It's just kind of a catch-all diagnosis. And because I believe that it has a big SIBO proponent, I run Gut Defender with this protocol here. So again, I go low FODMAP. I go Saccharomyces boulardii, because it's usually a diarrhea situation. So 1 cap per day, meal 1. And then I use some things to bring inflammation down, because there's a lot of inflammation. And so Intisol is an excellent product for IBS. 1 cap 3 times daily, works really well to bring down inflammation. Curcumin, that's a potent form of curcumin, relieves inflammation. 2 caps per meal, per day, meal 1 and 5. Omegagenics, which is a potent DHA and EPA fish oil, 4 caps of that. And then, as I said, Gut Defender. And I'd rotate 2 caps in meal 1, meal 3, and meal 5. You can even add a 4th like we had in the general SIBO protocol. But I would put that in because I think a lot of times that's what you're dealing with, but you're also dealing with a lot more inflammation, it seems like, with IBS to get people to get that diagnosis. But there's been plenty of times that they were told they had IBS. And I said, well, let's do a GI map. And they do it. And they have, bacteria that's overgrown in many, many areas. So I just go ahead and run a SIBO protocol. But if they're an IBS client and, they don't want to run a SIBO protocol or a GI map, it's your call. You can use this way, or you can go ahead and run a SIBO on them. Without test, it's one or the other. I wish I could give you a better way, but I mean, the test is what I usually try to do if they've had an IBS diagnosis. But this is a way to definitely deal with the inflammation and get things down. Leaky gut. So this is important to know about. And what it really is basically it's increased intestinal permeability. So what we have here, if you can see my hands, so tight junctions line the stomach and they fit together nicely. And they fit like my fist into a point that you can get nutrients through the slits, but not the toxins. Well, when your gut becomes leaky, the tight junctions do this. And now you're getting toxins into the system, and that can kick off autoimmunity issues, psoriasis, all these different things. And so, it's basically the walls of the intestines that act as barriers, and they're just being expressed in a way that toxins get into the bloodstream. So that's what it is and what's going on. And what we want to do is focus on diet. Okay. So I always go low FODMAP if I think there's a leaky gut component. I'm going to go low FODMAP, and I've got to pull gluten. So there's a protein called zonulin, and it's the only known regulator of intestinal permeability, and it's expressed from gluten. So if someone is prone to this, we've got to get gluten out. So I like low FODMAP, no gluten for sure. I would like no dairy as well, and really no alcohol. If someone's prone to leaky gut, they really shouldn't be drinking at all. At least let's get it healed up some before we do that. So zonulin is a big deal when it comes to intestinal permeability, and it's gluten that we need it's the trigger, and we need to get that out in these people. So leaky gut, a lot of it is going to include bloat. It's going to include food sensitivities, fatigue, digestive issues, skin problems. You can have autoimmunity disease like Hashimoto's. So if someone has Hashi's and I find that on labs, I immediately start with the gut, and I shore up the gut, and I fix leaky gut, which we're going to talk about here and how you fix it. The thing is, many of the symptoms can look like SIBO. Okay, so it's hard to discern which direction to go. So I look for signs of autoimmunity. And if I see none, then I'd rather go as a SIBO case and go from there, because honestly, the SIBO protocol seems to shore up the gut lining and fix things. So if I don't see any autoimmunity, I'm going to run a full-blown SIBO. And you're probably thinking, well, why don't you just run a SIBO? Well, the SIBO is expensive. You saw the supplements. So if I don't have to run it, and I know it's just leaky gut and there's autoimmunity, and they really don't have, maybe as bloated as constantly, I'm going to go ahead and do the leaky gut. But if I don't see autoimmunity issues and they're bloating really bad, I'm going to go ahead and do SIBO. So those are kind of things that you got to kind of fish out. But remember, Hashimoto's, autoimmunity, you're probably looking at a leaky gut issue. And if you don't know how to find Hashi's on a blood work, the TPO-AB will be running high. That's one of the thyroid markers that should be getting tested. Life Extension took it off, but that nutrition dynamic site that I sent you to, they have a female weight loss panel and a male weight loss panel for 190. So it's even cheaper. Mentor Lab will get you 15 off, and that has TPO-AB. So that one's always on there. So I've been using that one instead because then I can see the TPO-AB. So how do you fix leaky gut? So again, I go low FODMAP, no gluten, alcohol, dairy. Gluten's huge. Got to explain it to them what's going on. We're going to lower stress, just like we've been, less cardio, less training. I'm going to add a probiotic. Okay. I'm going to add our Flora Protect 1 with meal 1. And then remember our friends in Laureate, zinc carnosine. We're going to use that because remember that helps rebuild the mucosal lining of the gut. Glutamine is cheap and amazing at rebuilding the lining, 20 grams daily. Aloe vera juice, 5 ounces, meal 1 and meal 5. This is a temporary stopgap. What I mean by that is as you drink it, it fills in the tight junctions. It's like a coating. And so it only lasts for a while, but it's going to stop allowing, the toxins through as you're trying to rebuild the mucosal lining, remove, the inflammatory foods, et cetera, et cetera. Make sure they stop using NSAIDs. If they really have inflammation, use curcumin. And so like I was trying to say was, if I don't see autoimmunity and I'm not quite sure if it's SIBO or leaky gut, I generally am going to go with a SIBO protocol because I still see leaky gut clear up. And if you want to throw in like zinc carnosine as a little extra stopgap in there with the SIBO protocol, you can. You could also throw in glutamine. It's not going to hurt the protocol. So if I do see the TPOO that's high, though, I know that they have leaky gut. And so I'm going to usually use this focus and not really get into all the killers. So you always got to fix the leaky gut when you've got autoimmunity issues. Okay. So those are all the things that I have prepared to teach you about physique athletes. Those are the main things I see. But what I want to do here is go over a GI map with you. So I'm going to stop this share screen and switch it out here. So let me see. At least I think I am. Okay. So here is a GI map, and this is going to break down bacteria, H. pylori, and yeasts. And so this up here where it says pathogens, they're bacterial pathogens. We really don't want much of this in the body at all. And this is like C. diff, E. coli, salmonella. These are things that can really make you pretty sick pretty quickly with really violent vomiting and different things. So a lot of times I don't see much of these. They're probably going to be taking themselves to the emergency room if they have, E. coli. So I don't see much here ever. And so again, here, there's nothing raised. If they had any type of number, you can see over here, that's how they do the numbers. It's 1 to the 3rd power. And so there would be a similar type of denotation here, but there's not. So there's nothing going on here. And then pathogens, just so you know, that means they feed off of the host. So none of these parasitic pathogens feed off the host. The bacterial ones are just your bacterial ones. So parasitic means they feed off the host. And then you've got your viral pathogens, norovirus, but nothing's going on there. And like I said, I don't usually see much up there. We come down next and it's H. pylori. Now, they didn't flag it as high, but it's higher than you want. So this can be less than 1 to the third power. This is 1.3 to the second power. So yeah, it's less, but there is presence, and I don't like it. I'd want that cleaned up. But then we get down to normal bacteria. What does that mean? It means bacteria that you want in your stomach. You can look at some of these numbers. They're pretty high. So she's low, okay, in Escherichia. She's low here in Clostridia, and she's high in Akkermansia. So whenever we start seeing highs, we know that there's some SIBO going on. They have some dysbiosis. Now, lows, a lot of times, if all you have is lows, you can fix that much easier. You just need probiotic. You can keep your FODMAPs in. You just really need to re-inoculate the gut. And you start by adding probiotics, giving it prebiotics, and go from there with a good, healthy, low FODMAP eating plan. And then you can put back in the FODMAPs if you want. I think you could probably keep them in, but I usually pull it and go pull the FODMAPs, and then put them back later. So high here in 1. None of these phylomicrobiota are high. And then we get to opportunistic bacteria. So this is full-blown looking SIBO here. A lot of these are high. So we have opportunistic bacteria. And what is opportunistic bacteria? You want them in the gut in a small presence, but they're the ones that generally, if there's going to be a problem, they cause it. They're quicker to feed. And so that means a lot of times they become overgrown. So highs here, definitely SIBO. And then possible autoimmune triggers. She's got Klebsiella, and that I believe can cause rheumatoid arthritis. So she's got a possible trigger there. She's also got yeast. So she's got Candida. Candida, both of them are high. So, we definitely are going to be needing to treat that as well. So she has H. pylori not flagged high. She has tons of opportunistic bacteria that is off. And she has some Candida that's off as well. Okay. Now we go down here. There's more parasites. I've never seen any of these detected. So I've yet to deal with them. Digestion, intestinal health. So this tells you how healthy your digestive tract is. So elastase has to do with your pancreatin enzymes. If this is low, sub 200, you don't have enough pancreatin enzymes. So what are we going to do here with the SIBO protocol? We're going to add pancreatin enzymes. We didn't have it in the general one, but now we know we're going to add it. Steatocrit. If this is high, there's too much fat in the diet. Too much fat in the stool. So it's not being digested. So then we know they have a bile problem. So no problem here. We do put back bile with the beta TCP and beta plus supplement that I had listed in the SIBO protocol. I'm not going to pull it. I'm going to leave it, but it does look like they're good there with fat. Beta glucuronidase, it's in range. It's elevated though. Beta glucuronidase actually causes estrogen to be reabsorbed in the stomach back into the body. And when you have SIBO, this number goes higher and higher. You're putting off more beta glucuronidase. So a lot of times with SIBO, you're going to have women who are relatively estrogen dominant. Obviously, if you're dealing with a guy, it could be the same. He could be definitely reabsorbing too much estrogen. And SIBO is not just a female thing. I have a guy in a SIBO protocol right now. So we don't want high beta glucuronidase. The way you get that down is calcium D-glucarate. You can use the dosing that's in Estracort, or you can just use Estracort, but it's in there. The calcium D-glucarate will bring down beta glucuronidase. Occult blood. I did not like this. And so this was a consult, meaning she wasn't my client, but she wanted me to read this for her and set her up. I sent her to the ER. this is bleeding. This is like ulcers. This is something going on in the colon. She's got something open that is causing blood. And anytime I see this, I want them to get checked out. And I suggest that's what you do too. Immune response. So here's your secretory IgA. So it's at 600, and the low end is 510. The high end is 2000. So what that tells us is the lower it is, the lower her immune system in the gut is functioning. So she's got an immunity issue too. So I'm going to use our bloat ease at New Ethics. It's got immunoglobulins in it, and that's literally what helps restore immunity in the gut. So I'm going to use 2 scoops of that a day because she's got poor immunity. Now, if this was higher, 1,000, 1,500, I wouldn't have to do that. Antigliadin is letting you know if you got too much gluten in your stool. She's fine. So technically here, we don't have to pull gluten, but I mean, I'm going to anyways, but it's not setting off. It's not high, which then could set off a zonulin issue, right? If this was high, we know we want to get it out, and we're probably dealing with some leaky gut probably too. Calprotectin is your inflammatory marker. It always trips me out how this can be in range when someone has as many bacteria as she has. But as it may be, her inflammation in the gut is not too bad. So we don't need any extra anti-inflammatories or anything like that. If it's high, I might put curcumin in. I leave Metapure in the whole process. I don't just leave it in for the 14 days. And Metapure has curcumin in it, quercetin. So that's going to bring down inflammation. But that is how you walk through a GI map. Now, what I want to show you is the guide. So we know that she had some H. pylori. So I do want to handle that. So let's take a look at the guide. I recommend that you read this. I've read it probably 3 times, but I pick out something new every time. It's really done well. And, they tell you how to read the report. They talk about here how you read it, 1.21 to the 5th power. That's high. But it tells you how to kind of look at those things. Then it gets into the pathogens, like what are they, and what's going on there. And so, we didn't have any pathogens. There was nothing. We didn't have any, C. diff or anything like that. But this gives you a breakdown of like symptoms, and then therapies, and what you can do. So, they have consider Saccharomyces boulardii, high dose probiotics, broad spectrum antimicrobial herbs, and a 5R protocol. Well, 5R protocol is what I taught you with the SIBO protocol. That is what they say to do it. So, I mean, if we had to deal with it, that's what we would do. We would run a SIBO protocol. But some of these start to get more specific, and that's what I want to show you. But here's the 5 R's. You remove. So you remove the pathogens or the bacteria, and we use antimicrobials to do that. We don't use antibiotics. You replace. So you got to replace the digestive juices. And so a lot of times, I go ahead and use that bile one, but like even they said here, you could add hydrochloride, betaine hydrochloride. You can add apple cider vinegar, bile, ox bile right there. So that's your replace. And we covered that. Reinoculate, add some probiotics. Saccharomyces boulardii is listed here. And as you know, I told you to add that in during the SIBO protocol. So we're reinoculating. That's recolonization with the healthy bacteria. Prebiotics, inulin, things like that. We talked about those. Repair. We're going to repair, and that's immune support. So colostrum works really well, or immunoglobulins. You can see it right here. And so I use our bloaties, but you could find a colostrum product if you wanted to for the immune support. Intestinal barrier repair. Do we need aloe vera? Do we need glutamine? S. boulardii, Saccharomyces boulardii is here as well. So that's why I like using that. It's good for immune support. It's good for intestinal barrier repair. And then we rebalance. And rebalance is basically what I call maintenance. We got to keep the sleep, diet, exercise, and stress managed. And we're going to keep them on those few products that we talked about. So that's what a 5R program is. And that's what I taught you. But let's go down and just kind of show you what this guide's capable of. So we know they had some H. pylori. Did I pass that already? Let's see. No. Okay. So we know they have some H. pylori. So how do you get it? Fecal contamination. So either not washing your hands well enough or someone else doing it, oral to oral. So you can pass it partner to partner. And this tells you the treatment. So consider herbal formulas to eradicate or suppress. Ingredients may include licorice. Mastic gum is a big one that I use. I use that a lot. You can use 2 grams a day. Make that 4 grams a day while you're battling it. Zinc carnosine, if you remember that was good for building the mucosal lining back up, but it's also good for killing H. pylori. So if I wanted to do this person's SIBO protocol, I probably would use, I know I would use our gut defender, and then I would layer in some antibiotic or some other things. You can see berberine here and oil of oregano. And I told you those cut across both. So because we've got Candida bacteria and H. pylori, I'm going to pick the ones that are listed in all 3. And so oil of oregano and berberine are definitely ones that are listed. So let's go down to normal bacteria. She had a few of those that were high. And let's see if they have therapeutic approaches. Trying to see what they list for. I don't see their killers listed. Increased dairy. Well, either way, it's bacteria. So I'm going to use the ones that cut across. Let's see if the opportunistic has a listing. Yeah, so here's berberine again for the opportunistic, and that was the ones that were really bad on her. Here's oil of oregano again. So I like those. Caprylic acid is in gut defender already. See the SIG-A level. They want you to look at that because usually they have suppressed immunity, which they do. And so then you can come down. Here's fungals and yeasts. Some things that can cause antibiotic use, high intakes of sugars, hypochlorhydria, which means low stomach acid. And then let's see if they got therapeutic. Saccharomyces boulardii, again, helps a lot with yeast. So again, that's why I chose it. It's so multi-purpose. Antifungal herbs, caprylic acid, again, we have that in gut defender. Oil of oregano and berberine, again. So they cover all of those. So that's why I like to rotate those in with gut defender. And so, you can use this to see what you kind of want to add and what you want to do. They give a lot of info here free.
Would you potentially use oil and oregano, berberine just as a general usage if people are having some digestive issues that they can't seem to get to the root of?
You certainly could.
Yeah, since they cover everything anyways.
Certainly could. Yeah. Just remember though, if there's biofilms involved and things like that, you're probably going to get better, but not maybe fully better.
Right.
If you're only adding those. But yeah, I mean, if someone has, some issues going on and you added those, you're 100% going to get some improvement. It's just, if you're not doing a full blown protocol, you might not get it all gone.
Gotcha.
Let's see. I want to show you the intestinal health stuff because you might forget what I taught you. It took me a minute to remember that elastase meant pancreatin enzymes. So, they show you, they remind you of that. And so it's nice to have that. So causes of low elastase is suppressed pancreatic elastase is suppressed pancreatic function. Gallstones, again, hypochlorhydria. What is that? Low stomach acid. And they're going to have low stomach acid if they have H. pylori present. So that's the elastase. There's steatocrit, fecal fats. And so causes of elevated steatocrit would be hypochondria. So again, not enough stomach acid. It's a big problem. Malabsorption, pancreatin insufficiency, so C elastase, bile salt insufficiency. So high steatocrit means too much fat in the stool, and you're probably going to do well to add a pancreatin enzyme and something for bile. I always put something for bile in that general protocol I taught you, so you're going to be set there. Let's go down. Beta glucuronidase. I would read this, but it tells you about how it causes, estrogen to be reabsorbed. And so when it's high, you'll have dysbiosis, which goes hand in hand. Therapeutic approaches for high beta glucuronidase, you see right here, calcium deglucarate. And that is in estricort. But that is going to help reduce beta glucuronidase. Occult blood and fecal. Remember, that was at 31. It was high. And so they tell you here, there's hemoglobin present in the stool to a point where, it's a high amount. And so possible causes: bleeding, ulcers, inflammatory bowel disease, cancer, polyps, upper GI bleeds. So that's why I was like, yeah, you need to go to the urgent care. And if they don't, that's on them. But you definitely want to point that out. And then SIG-A, as I told you, that was an immune response. And they tell you right here. And so if you have a low fecal SIG-A, the gut immune system is suppressed. It tells you right here. So this guide is really helpful. And then therapeutic approaches. So in microbiome imbalances, colostrum or immunoglobulins. Like I said, I use our Bloaties, which is immunoglobulins. Supplement with Espelarti. I got that in as our probiotic in the general SIBO protocol we went over earlier in the presentation. So they've got all those adjusted. Anti-gliadin is a component of gluten. So if you forget, it's the protein found in wheat and rye, blah, blah, blah. So, if it's high, consider gluten elimination. We talked about that. If they've been gluten-free, then there might be hidden sources of gluten that's going on. Oats, can be in a factory that has gluten unless you get gluten-free oats. Again, they want you to repair the intestinal lining when you have an issue with that. Remove gluten, repair the lining. So L-glutamine, as I told you, is great. Zinc carnosine, remember I told you that's a great one. Colostrum works. So does immunoglobulins. So calprotectin is your inflammation marker, as I told you. And so when that's high, you've got elevated inflammation. And so, they tell you here, anti-inflammatory diet, which we definitely will be on, curcumin, omega-3 fatty acids, aloe. So, they're all things that I've talked to you about using. Zonulin, this was not on their test. You got to add it. But as I told you, it's the protein that opens intracellular tight junctions in the gut lining. We talked about that. And so zonulin increases intestinal permeability. And so if you're prone to gluten, what's the word I want? Expressing it. Sorry. If you're prone to that, then you'll want gluten out as well. So you'll be able to see if your zonulin is really high, you almost know you have intestinal permeability, because that's one of the things that it controls. Therapeutic approaches: eliminate gluten, address food insensitivities, promote a healthy intestinal barrier. Again, L-glutamine, aloe, there's zinc, carnosine. So all the things that we had talked about for building a healthy lining. So that's how you read your GI map, and that's how you use this guide to help you kind of detail or make it more detailed, or, in the situation for your client, basically. So that's all I had to present.
That
You
was
know, I know
amazing.
we're an hour and a half in, but if you guys have some questions, I'll try to field them for you.
I mean, if anybody has them, go ahead and ask them.
I probably should have asked this earlier, but what was the supplement for UTIs that you recommended?
Oh yeah, GSE Pro.
GSE Pro.
Yeah, it's by Tonic C. And I do have a link in there in the presentation, and it'll give you about 20% off more than what, as long as you log into that account, like set up an account, it'll give you 20% off compared to what you'll find online.
Okay. And that actually like gets rid of UTIs?
Yep. Yep. But you got to do 2 caps 4 times a day. So you need to get a couple bottles
Okay.
because we're hyperdosing it.
Yeah,
That's super interesting.
it
Yeah.
is. I used to get, in high school, I used to get UTIs almost every single week for like months. And
Yeah.
I've been so many antibiotics, obviously.
Yes.
So
How's your
that's
gut?
cool. Well, I
Is it
mean, now
alright?
it's good, but yeah.
All right. Well, so, hey, sometimes it's never the same. So that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any other questions, guys?
Looks like that's it. Well, Jay, I really appreciate your time, brother.
Yeah, man.
Really
I
cool.
enjoyed it. I hope you guys got something out of it. If you post anything, tag me. I'm Scooby Prep IFBB Scooby Prep 1 _ IFBB Pro.
I'll drop it. Yeah, if anybody wants to take a little, Jay, why don't you throw up a peace sign for us real quick, dude? There it is. What a guy. All right, guys.
All right.
Good night. Thank you all. Talk to you
All
next
right.
week. Thanks
See
again.
ya.
Jay.
All righty. Bye.